Hello, how are you? Um, my name is Langelihle, and you are currently in the Life by the Page podcast, which is residing here in South Africa. We usually interview guests like yourselves, which are entrepreneurs, which are going to tell us successful stories about your journeys and what you're trying to implement in the future, about your projects and stuff like that. So, can you please share to the audience who you are and yeah.
Okay. First, I'd like to apologize for my voice. We're trying today, just in case. My name is Angelica Kapsis. I'm the president of a company called VotRite. The spelling's a little different. And what we provide are election services. So that means that anybody that needs to cast a vote formally for their president, their prime minister, their leader, or informally, a group, a smaller business, a sports team, things of that nature, we can provide that. And what happens when we provide that is that they're given a verified paper trail, which becomes a formal legal document that can provide an uncontested, that means nobody's going to argue that result, the final tally of what was voted. So for example, why it is important, what the difference might be is way back when we had groups of people that wanted to vote on things, maybe schools, and you wanted to vote for where to build a new school, or you were an advocacy group and you wanted to make sure that you had enough food for somebody, or you wanted money allocated to certain things, medical or food, you'd raise your hand. And that was great. That used to work. But then came a time where they started arguing. Oh, no, we weren't actually in agreement. We would rather it be this way, or we didn't quite hear the criteria. So by providing a formal opportunity, a platform where you're pressing, you have the control, the voter is choosing, we have a printable result. Now we take it to a higher level and we say, we know for sure we're going to get this done because we chose yes, right? So that's the best part about it. Formalize exactly what we want so we're on the same page. And that's what VotRite offers.
So when did this project start to implement? I'm sure it started in US. It's currently working in the US department, right? And like, what were the
Right.
challenges
So
you face?
So there have been plenty of challenges, as I'm sure you know from the global news. With our election process, it's a very contested process right now. And I think the reason for that is that there's not a universally accepted standard. There's not a codified set of rules across the United States. We have a country and then we have our 51 states, right? Within our bulk. And in the continental to 50, every state has a different rule for what the protocol is, whether or not you can argue, whether or not you can recount, whether or not you can use electronic or you have to count paper. So VotRite has been around for quite some time. We revamped the entire unit in 2017 and we produced this company that we're proceeding with. And the reason that we did that was because we were moving with the trend. We were following what was going on elsewhere. There are right now about 4 to 5 major vendors that are allowed in VotRite, but many of them are funded from other countries currently. That would be okay because initially it was pushing us through the process and allowing development of our electoral process. So in the beginning, we wanted to build, right? Just like we wanted all of us coming in as immigrants to work, to build America. The problem with that was people from other places weren't quite sure of our democracy, our democratic process. And because of that, they weren't showing up at the time that we needed them to do the things that we need. So our protocol started falling. We started seeing small errors turn into huge errors because their tech support didn't show up. And that's really the motivation for how our VotRite system was developed. We looked at all these different issues that we were seeing, and we had our development team finding solutions for Americans based off an American perception. I was born in America. My father, who invented it, was born in America. I'll tell you a little bit about my background because I purposely dove into a lot of places to learn. And we took all that information and we created a unit where it just makes sense. And not only does it make sense for us, but because we're considered a superpower that's going to provide for everybody, including South Africa, it makes sense for everybody that we have had the opportunity to teach and learn from, because that's what we do. So if you'd like, I'll go into a little bit about, my background and how I learned these things, who I learned from, things like that. Would you like that?
Yeah, definitely. I like that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Yes, yes, please. Yes, please.
So I graduated high school kind of early. I was like 16 years old, and I was all over the place. I was a firefighter. I was into medicine. I wanted to be a doctor so badly, and I was going to go do humanitarian missions. That was my dream as a kid. And actually, I was going to go to Africa. I didn't tell anybody, but I'll tell you now because I'm very excited. Once this takes off, I have a lot of opportunities. But um, so I was planning to be a doctor. And then I went into college and I realized that a lot of people were for the money. And my mind, I should have also stayed track, but my mind goes, oh, you need to love it. You need to be a doctor for free, the 16-year-old. So I changed my degree and I went for psychology because I said, I'd rather do something I love. I want to be really good at things. So let me learn the mind so we understand each other all the time. So I went and I learned the mind. I was a firefighter, so I knew how to help people no matter where they came from. I drove the ambulances, so I learned what it was like on the medical side. I worked as a volunteer in the hospitals. I would wheel around the geriatrics. I would work in the emergency room. And it gave me this level of exposure that like I would never have had. And then from that point, I got my master's degree. I joined the military because I wanted to learn around the world. And I really wanted to learn how to apply the knowledge, maybe how to be a better doctor, what to do in an emergency, how to avoid conflict, and then what to do to stop the conflict. You understand? And what that did was it helped build me into a really nice entrepreneur because now I know which parts of our discussion matter most to be able to provide something on time. What the challenge is in the United States is because everybody is so contested, they're arguing, they don't want to say the person has the position. I'm not sure if you remember, but for the past two presidential terms, there are a few people for 4 years saying, I'm not working to help this president. And our economy is going down a little bit because they don't want to admit that the president's the president for 4 years, right? So we're having this trouble of how to move forward. And because we're having such trouble, unfortunately, people are taking steps through fear and they're going backwards. And they're saying no more electronic because the foreigners didn't show up and make us feel the comfort that they should have. So we don't think the electronic's going to work because it seemed like it didn't work and there was no fix for it. Let's go back to paper. We're going to start counting paper. The problem with that is anybody, you, me, she, he, a person with disabilities, a genius that works 18 hours a day, walks in, they want to do the best thing, but they're tired. And when you're counting tiny, tiny things and you're not sure if they erased it or they circled the right answer, you may make an error. And furthermore, just so you understand, if we were all to go to paper ballots and we're basing it on a human count, you or I is counting it twice, what do we compare that to know that we are accurate? We should be comparing it to an electronic system. We should be comparing it to a computer that can't mess it up like a calculator. Yes? So VotRite, the way that I want to solve that is I'm going to offer it's a 15 pound, it's an all-in-one electronic system. It's very small. You can see it on our website, www.votrite.com. And you, the voter, have three chances to verify that you're looking at exactly what prints out, which doesn't happen right now. And you're going to look at it at the final review screen, and you're going to press print, and it's going to look identical on the electronic as the paper. So you, the voter, know there's no red light, green light. There's no guessing that it's going to be scanned later with a QR code. You're staring at what's going to be tallied, and you're staring at the electronic model. 100% accuracy. None of our personal information, but 100% accuracy that every president, vice president, representative, friend that you vote for is being tallied the same way. Because people are nervous in the
Yeah.
United States, they're not eager to fund this type of system because it is new. It is revolutionary. It is something that is new. It is so good. It is so good that it must be tried and tested, right? So currently in the United States, we're seeking funding because we lack funding to move quickly. Our elections take place in November, and that's a little ways away. And in the United States, we have something called the federal certification, which is the top of the government. They have a private entity, the Election Assistance Commission, and they're going to review all these vendors. So far, they only have the 4 cleared, and we're eligible to do that. But the cost is a little under $1 million to do. So just giving you an idea, our unit is available and ready for use anywhere. But the idea is, the reason why I'm glad you invited me on here is because maybe people don't know, you know, we built something so amazing that we just want to pass the word. So I really appreciate you having me on here, because it's, if we could bring it anywhere, if we could bring it to a place, even South Africa, anywhere, and we just test it and we perfect it for that territory, because we're all different, right? So if we have you in your native tongue for your families, your ancestors, whatever's easy, and we put the right information and we make it easy to understand, and they just have a perfect experience, then we've won. And we have won for the world, wherever we begin, because our election process is extremely important to all of us, right? And we don't want to be turned away because it seems too difficult, or it seems too penetrable, too hackable, too scary. We want it to be easy and fun, because the presidential election, our leaders are not the only thing we're supposed to be electing. In a democracy, not a republic like we're hearing in America, but it's actually called a democracy. That's the way it should be. The people are able to vote on an abundance of things, on conflict, on leadership, on smaller things like what type of schooling, what the location is, what we want in the supermarket. You know what I mean? How safe our kids should be, what the rules should be. And nobody's gotten started on how deep we can go. Can you imagine in South Africa if you actually had the opportunity to choose how the infrastructure was built in your village or town, and it was such a formal, organized process? We were all professionals about it, that we could just take a slip and we can send it like a petition. We don't have to walk around. We can come vote and we can send a petition and say, this village requires attention here, here, and here. And we rank it. Number one, medical; number two, food. And then we can tell them how, and we send them a formal legal document that says this is what we need. And then they can file and they can go by priority, and they know they don't have to go and take the time to visit. They don't have to find enough people, because we organize the process well enough. Does that make sense? So that's the idea for America, and that's how it could be applied where you are too. And I love
Yes,
that.
yes, I can see,
Yeah.
Angelica. I can see. So I understand the electronic process and everything, but you're basically having a fight with warlords, I can call, because you're just, I will see you as a, you see, this blockbuster and this Netflix. You're currently Netflix going against, you know, yes,
No, I
and
know. And
yes, it's
and
a
how do we get them into those locations, right? I mean,
correct.
is there any sort of fair passage to come in? Do you guys have internet connectivity nearly everywhere in these areas where it would be an online voting component? Because VotRite also offers an online component. Just like I'm logged in with you now, you can log in and submit your vote, and in real time, I can have results. And even if it's cut short because of a conflict or some sort of issue, I have the results. So if you have 90% of the population that made it through the structure, we have the result. Or a liaison that would be there, somebody like yourselves, but within my field, that would be willing to participate, that knows you and knows what's going on, would be able to still acquire the same type of data, you know? So I'd like to know a little bit more about how your environment is in terms of your elections too, because I think it's important that while we're talking about both sides, what do you think is possible for you and your people?
Currently, in our country, it's not specifically. It's like happens everywhere. You just go and take your. You can vote online. I think you can vote online, right? Yeah, you vote online, or you take your card and you
The
insert it
ballot?
in a
Yeah.
box. It's called IEC. It's called IEC. You insert it there, and then after the election, they're gonna count everything. And after election, they're gonna elect a leader, stuff like that. So it's not a proven process, as in like you're gonna specifically determine if this was the rightful leader who was elected or he won the votes because these are the results that they were showing. This person, got the same exact amount of the votes, so he won, something like that. But I won't be so sure for the system. Is it accurate or is not accurate? So there could be some, yeah, vote rights could actually help in so many areas. That's why I thought this interview would be a blessing towards my audience, definitely.
Yeah. And since I was in the military, I have a little bit of background in terms of setting up humanitarian. I was more so on the humanitarian side, you know, than the conflict sort of side. I did a lot of volunteer work and mentorship while I was in the Navy. And one of these things that we have are counselors that are able to go in and identify places of need and how to set up infrastructure, kind of like they do for you guys. They set up hubs, you know, and sometimes they'll push out aid when they can, when it's safe enough, and then they'll wrap it up and then they'll put it elsewhere. And maybe it's an idea that somebody within your government could, not even the government, within us, our private, you know, whoever might be interested in the election process, could discuss an option for that that would be safe enough for you. And in addition to that, I hear you saying, well, we're not even sure if it's contested because we don't even know if they got the same votes or how it really turned out. With VotRite, having the electronic model is so important because it registers data that allows for an audit. So when we go back in later on, we can pull the paper that you guys verified. You looked at it, right? And you cut the tape and you watched it fall in. Somebody who's counting it can be checked. We can spot check. We can take whatever hundreds of thousands. We can pull as many as we want out. And we go to the electronic system and we verify it. It's a photo image it snaps. And we'll see 100% that they're counting it the right way as many times as we want. So we know 100% that that person won. And then it allows for, what it does is, see, here's the thing that I think is going on, and it should be straightened out, is in the beginning, when I was interviewed in the United States, I was asked a lot of political questions, sort of like a candidate. And then they were saying, well, what are you going to do if we're not happy? And I said to myself, I'm really a calculator that's going to be doing other things, you know, after I'm completed with this. But the idea is because of so much transparency and accuracy, 100% sure, we can now shift our focus. A lot of politicians got wrapped up thinking after the election ends, if I didn't win, maybe there's a problem and I can't let it go in America, you know? And then they're going, you better recount it or we're not counting it. And then they get focused. But with VotRite, same way as anywhere else in South Africa, we could start implementing protocols step by step to remind the politicians that we have their back. They can focus on the campaign so much that maybe they'll win because they're going to be amazing. They never have to be afraid that the election is going to forfeit their win. And because they never have to be afraid, because we can prove 100% of the time we voted for who we wanted to, they're going to focus on being even better for you. They're going to focus on being even better for us on America's side. And that's really helpful too. You know, we all work as a team, work together. We're never putting one guy down. We're never commenting on their competence. Rather, we're going to build them up because you and me at the bottom level are going to trust. We're going to verify 100%. And we're going to feel safe saying to our leader, now I trust you. Now I know for a fact you were voted. Or when you're going into it, because now the leader knows I'm covered. I have a system, I have a source that's going to provide for me. If I'm the best, it's going to be the best. I don't have to win popularity to convince you because somebody else isn't counting it right. I'm the best. And now I'm going to focus on the people because I can show them I can be the best. The system is taken care of, you know? So it's a really great process. It's just a matter of getting in to try. So yeah,
Oh,
there's
okay, I
many
see.
options.
Definitely. So how can I, let's say I'm the president, I'm the president of the country. How can I prove, okay, if I'm a citizen, how can I accept this system? You know, how can I accept this system if you're not working with Donald Trump, Joe Biden? How
Well,
can I accept it? Yes, how can you just elaborate
just
on
so
that?
you know, so back in America, you know how we have red, white, and blue? Those are colors of our flag. It was also how to differentiate our political party lines. So it was Democrat, Republican, and Independence Party. The coolest thing about the Independence Party, the white, the piece, was that you could vote on either primary. Democrats have to vote Democrat primary. There's a primary and then the reelection, the general. Republicans have to vote Republican. Angelica has been a member of the Independence Party forever. As a matter of fact, in America, unfortunately, they removed the Independence Party's right to vote in primaries because we were too small, they said. So the owner of VotRite can no longer be politically biased because herself got removed from being able to navigate those big moves. But in addition, I have always been neutral because I've always been entitled more than a Donald Trump or a Joe Biden through the Independence Party, where no matter what they said or did, I did not have to agree. I could research the candidate myself, and then I choose either or I choose my party. So the best part about this is VotRite's built with my mind in this foundation of neutrality. I have never been biased toward a political party or another. And therefore, the way that the system has been created has no bias, zero. And because you can audit, you can forensically audit, which is the same as finding a murder, or a theft, you go for an investigation. That's the highest level of auditing, forensics, right? So somebody who is a master at their job that wants to find you wrong, they want to find dirt, they can go into the machine and they can go line by line and find out whether or not it was messed with. In addition to that, the audit for you and my eyes or a supervisor is going to show us 100% accuracy, an image, along with the paper. So if you voted, let's say, for your president and you voted for a friend, you're going to remember which names, right? Well, both names are going to appear on the paper and both names are going to appear on the computer. And you're going to know nothing was messed. So that's the best part about it. And these other vendors that I know right now, typically they're biased. Typically they're Democrat or Republican, or they're foreign and they don't have interest. But that was why they didn't show up to correct the errors. So I'm finding balance here. And since my life was designated, I took this role with my father. We co-founded this. But my trajectory, as I told you, was supposed to be medicine overseas. Always. It's where my heart is. So I love my country, but I love even more the world. So I never create a bias because what does South Africa have to do with Joe Biden or Donald Trump? What do you have to do with any issue that we're dealing? Nothing, because you're going to be funded when you need to be funded on either side. And that's where the Independence Party non-biased perspective makes it easy. So I'm very confident that way.
So, okay, I see everything, but what is your plan now to like change the whole system, the whole voting corporation?
So we're not planning on wiping anybody. We're not planning on sweeping it and putting ourselves only. We're a business. So the point of the business is to generate income so that we can provide the other things that I've been planning. My background is also with special needs, and I've been training them for a really long time to be functional without help. So we go together one to one. We go to the gym, we go to work, we go to the movies, we go everywhere 24 hours a day. And I build an adult that'll one day come and work with me. So I intend to use the income to not only stabilize my country, but to make sure they're taken care of. And of course, look how many people have immigrated. So I'm going to make sure they're taken care of. And many people in the United States are sending money home. So the purpose of VotRite really is to fund these very desired opportunities elsewhere. And that's why it's so unfortunate. That's why I feel such a weight on my shoulders that we've been limited, because it is such a nice idea. I've been building it for over 10 years to be able to serve different populations because I have expertise in it. It's the only interest I really have. So the goal for VotRite is to succeed enough to build these other programs, because if we build stability elsewhere, our minds can focus on our process to choose a leader that is right for us because we can think straight. I realize now that the biggest concern when it comes to our democratic process is the voter. It's not necessarily the bad guy, the politician, the cyber or the hacker or whatever it might be, but it's the voter, because the voter ultimately makes the decision. And if the voter's too scared to show up, we did not make a majority decision. And there's always going to be somebody interested in messing around with your territory, with mine. And if we are not the majority, they might become the majority. So in my mind, it's very relevant. It makes a lot of sense. And that's where the direction will be taken with VotRite. So initially, we're looking for investors. That's our goal. And we've transformed our company recently to create something called a mini IPO. Now, we're not quite ready to market and accept, but what a mini IPO will do is it's going to allow voters to own VotRite. They're going to be able to buy small stocks, so they actually have a say in how this company is run the entire time. And we can take it and run with it and make it huge. We can make it focused, but everybody that cares is going to have a say in what VotRite does. Unlike our competitors, which typically have money coming in from somewhere we never heard. They never had to market. They never put out commercials. The money comes in and it's only used for one purpose, and we never see anything come out of it. And in America, we're really multifaceted, which I'm sure you understand. Just like you guys, you can do everything you have to do to sustain your life. We have a different frame of mind. What can we do to sustain everybody else so that we are symbiotic? We are together, right? That's why you hear of America around the world, because that's the way I was trained as a kid. It wasn't me get mines. It was, all right, Angelica, if you can handle this, handle more for that guy. Go be a firefighter and do this at night, you know? So we're picking however much I can juggle, and the same concept's going to go with our voting technology and what we can do. So it's really special. And what we're looking for is just some investment. And it doesn't have to be from any particular source, but we're looking in America right now, and we're looking around the area with our allies and such. And we just need that boost. And then the voters are going to own it, and we're gonna run. And however far we make it as long as we do it right. So I can't say that we're going to stretch and we're gonna twist it and make the whole world different. But I can say that I have a far reach. Whatever funding I have, I'm going to keep reaching to whoever I can. So we got to start somewhere, and then we go for it, you know? Well, could you see something like VotRite if we could figure out safety, would you prefer the online method, or do you think a combination to have electronic there and then have some people online, who can't walk very far or get to the polling station? Could you see that happen one day if we could
Definitely.
promote safety? That's good
because
news. Yeah.
because my research on these kind of topics is that for South Africa the urbanization increased from 48% to like 65%. That means more people have access to
Oh, good.
technology, and electricity. And not only that, but the median age is 20.5. Because now everything is going to be AI and technology and AI in the future,
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
it's son. No one is going to be killing papers, stuff like that. Of course, everyone's going to register on the platform with the devices. Mostly everyone, even grannies now use telephone, use phones, have
Yes.
access to
My
it.
grandmother texted me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Even now, like when I was okay, people that were 10 years older than me or 20 years older than me, they had Blackberries. Now they have iPhones. Most everyone now has an iPhone. Most everyone has access to all these things. It's obviously your technology right now is going to change. It's going to
It's going to change big.
definitely. That's what I was trying to say. But yeah, yeah, you can elaborate
Absolutely.
on more what you want to implement with the audience so that they can just grasp on the advantages that they could get from the system.
So the system, I'll go into a little bit more. The system, what we did was, because I work with special needs, I had them order off a menu, so to speak. So they approached our system, and whatever disability they had or they perceived they have, mental or otherwise, they tried out the system and they started telling us ideas. So some of the ideas that we put into the system, double spacing, you can choose. So there's something called ballot settings. When you go in, we can put it in languages. So no longer, paper one or the other. If there are other dialects, we can add them in, and they push with their finger and their language pops up. In addition, they go into the settings and they have choices. Double spacing. They can choose the background color for neurological for the brain. Sometimes they say their eyes get confused. So we can put a yellow background, a blue background. For vision impaired, we put a black background with white writing. We can do a larger text font. It could be tiny, it could be large. One of my closest friends in the Navy, he got into a motorcycle accident, smashed his face, and he lost his sight. He used to carry me around. I was in a wheelchair, and I feel very strong for him because nobody else did that. I wanted to go out, and I couldn't walk far enough, so he would put me on his back, and we would go to the bar in California, whatever it was, and he would carry me all night. So to get him back, I had him test the machine, and we put a speech. So now he can wear headphones, and it narrates to him at whatever speed he wants, like supersonic speed. Let me tell you, some of these guys that don't have vision, they can hear things so fast that I can't even hear it. So I used him because he's an elite athlete. He's a marathon runner, blind, an Ironman champ, blind. And I made it so fast, and then I made it slow enough. So we have a lot of different amenities. We have something called the sip and puff, which is universal. It's not our build, but we allow for it. So what that means is the person will put on a set, they put a little dot on their head, which is a mouse. And we have a camera connected to the VotRite machine, and they move with their head because some of them can't speak or move their hands. So they have a straw. Have you heard of this before? A straw and a mouse, and the camera's here, and the system's in front, and they move their head to move the mouse, and then they blow or they suck, and it clicks the mouse. So they can navigate all by themselves. And it's really neat. So we're promoting this idea that everybody can have a secret ballot. They don't need to, because as per law in the United States, you can have a supportive person. You can help out your friend as long as you're not the candidate. But they chose these options, so they get to have that. Also, if you want, we can start over so I can tell you a little bit. There's a couple of other countries that have already used electronic voting, and I want to tell you because some of it's wild. Some of the terrain, things like that.
Okay, could you also please elaborate more on what you were about to tell us?
Yes. So what I was saying, there are plenty of countries that America assisted to develop. One of them in particular is India. We know particularly because we like them very much. We like them in this field. They're very reliable. And developing countries means anything. You understand, right? So it just means that there's still work that can be done to help create an infrastructure that needs no help, right? So that could be anywhere. India, particularly because they have a population of 1.3 billion people that have eligibility to vote. That is huge. In addition to that, they're part of the Himalayan mountains. So they have, these marshes, they have water, they have these camels and all these different weather elements, which I'm sure you're familiar with because you have extreme weather elements that you have to deal with too. And nothing is close in India. They have been doing electronic voting for years. They were one of the pioneers. They were one of the first guys. And it's what helped us create a vision for what America should look like as we continue to develop our prototypes, getting to the point that we are at now. I read an article. These people are still voting. This past election cycle last year, I love this. They have the electronic voting machines on camels. The electronic voting machines on camels marching through the Himalayan mountains, through the water, through everything else, to provide a 4 month or so election for all of India, for the billion population, and it works. And that says something right there, doesn't it? They trust the system, they allow what it requires to do so, and it works. And electronic, even through the water, they have it wrapped in watertight, whatever it might be. And to know that a process that intricate, that complex, works more than 1 year, more than one cycle, it gives us a lot of hope. It means that however hard we charge for South Africa, for United States, we know we're on track because we have people that have tried and tested elsewhere, no problems. Brazil, another place, they've been doing electronic voting with no fraud for about 20 years. And that is a huge accomplishment, especially for the Brazilian people. I mean, they have a lot of conflict. They have a lot of things where they're just unsure if they're in a green, if they're in a red. They wake up, they have a couple months, they're unsure of whether or not they're getting along. But one thing's for certain, is they agreed upon the electronic process to stay current, to make sure that they get this done quickly, and they're doing it. So my point to you is, even though it seems like a very large feat, even though it seems like a futuristic, evolved perspective, it's already tried and tested. And VotRite has already been tried and tested here with our population. So we know that there is no obstacle too large that we cannot overcome to achieve what we want, to achieve this development that makes us cohesive. So you're dealing with something like warlords, things of that nature. Usually that's because of a conflict that wasn't agreed on, and then you have a separation of power, right? But if we continue to do these things that are convenient, that are easy, it promotes cohesion. There will be no separation of power because we are all in agreement. We like the process that we are doing. Now, I'm not to say that we can convince a warlord to retire and go back to grace, but if we promote cohesion, we become a force for good. We become a force to reckon with. And people that are reasonable, warlords, they're not stupid. They have intelligence. They have the ability to think about things that they are doing, to plan, to execute, to operate, to maintain. Same as we do with our governments and with our people and as parents for our kids. And what we're doing is we're creating a foundation where we're promoting this majority idea in a very formal, professional way that could compete with a threat that we perceive in our territory or in the world. And that's what our democratic process does. No matter who dissents, no matter who says, yeah, I'm not into it, or let's separate the power and do it differently. If we have a cohesive process, forget about which candidate that we're into, because we are so cohesive, we are so together as one that we're significant nonetheless. We have decisions to make in so many different places because we chose to follow the same set of rules that made sense. And that's why it's really important for me that I briefed my country that we should have codified, we should have the same universally accepted standards for how to vote, maybe not federally regulated, maybe voted on and in time created. But if we have cohesion, we are no longer penetrable by all these guys breaking us apart, like we see in South Africa, and a couple other places that we do in the Middle East, things of that nature. So, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a huge deal and it's a great deal. And it's really exciting. And the implications are forever. And with VotRite's machine, we've made it so easy. We all understand we're going to AI, but do we understand what that means? Automated intelligence is just our intelligence automated for continuity and continuous output based off how smart we are programming it within reason. We created the equations and the information based off our exposure and our experience. And then we said, hey, it's going to make life easier. We don't have to do that task every day. Let the automated do it. We must be mindful that we need to be checking in with ourselves to maintain the human experience. So we have to participate in our human experience. You still have to get up and think, what's best for my family and myself? What interests do I like? You don't want the AI to choose for you. It's choosing a different person's profile. What you want to be thinking about is, how do I ensure that I'm giving this world enough information and enough of an experience through my intelligence? Because you're unique. You were put on this earth for a reason. You have information that I don't have. And until we decide that we are together, we're not creating that bigger picture, because that's an intention from a higher authority, something we're not sure of yet, right? Energy. So AI, as much as we're interested in developing and evolving, we still have to take the steps in the human experience. And that's what I mean by we have to have a little faith in each other. These investors have to have a little faith in VotRite. So VotRite can have a little faith in South Africa. So minds like ours can work together to start building experiences that can later be automated by AI and make the world easy to live in. Does that make sense? So it's all one relationship. And I think we have to be willing. And that's it. Becomes simple. But that's where it's at.
It's a very, very understandable process. So, like, let me just get this straight. So, like, there's still a voting system, right? And you're saying you're not going to eliminate the system. You're not going to eliminate the system, right? Am I right? That's what you're saying.
I'm
You're not
not
going
going
to
to
eliminate. You are
I'm not
not
going to
going to
eliminate the system.
Yes. So, how is the voting process going to take
So how to
place?
fix it, right?
That
So here's what we're contending
yes.
with. We're contending with a world in America. There's something called the free market, and the Chinese, which are our friends some days and not so much our friends other days. Right now we're in between, right? The Chinese also mastered something called the free market. And what that did for us, because the Chinese, we did a lot of development together. And I'm only using them as an example because they were immensely successful at the same process. And it's going to make sense in a minute. Okay. So in the free market, the Chinese and the Americans are capable of making money, and they just keep making money, and they just keep making money, right? And they all they want to do is make more money. And what that does is it puts them in a financial standing to make decisions for things that maybe they weren't exposed directly to, but they still have the authority to do that. And I'm sure you've seen that before, whether or not it's a warlord or a leader that understood you, but maybe missed one point, a small detail, right? Because they just had that foundation. They had authority from making money, making money, making money. It's what we're dealing with in America when it comes to our voting process, because it's been funded by other people that know what we do in business, that have a lot of money and then use money to make choices. They're not quite thinking about relinquishing the business that they have, making money, including in the voting industry, just to repair it for our territory or their territory. Does that make sense so far? So what I mean to say in the nicest words are, the people that are in the business right now are not willing to break their contract and exit because they're still making money. And therefore, it is a very tough approach for us to say, well, we're worth more because we do everything right, but we don't have the same amount of money. And they say, well, we have more money and people like money, so we're going to move more quickly and we're going to stay in these positions. So what I meant by this was, the voting process will start to develop based on trial, based on testing with the VotRite system in a county, which is a lot of people. It's a lot of people. It's millions in some circumstances. And we have about 335 million, which about 270 million voters in our territory. So we're looking at 200 million. And we start county by county. And maybe that's about 200 tries, which is not difficult for Angelica. But it will take time to develop a process that people agree with. And at the same time, people are finishing their careers elsewhere. They're involved in voting technology elsewhere. They're ahead of us, maybe 10 years ahead. So they'll begin to retire. And then Angelica and VotRite can step in. And then we create the solution 100% wherever we are accepted. But reality is something that all of us have to contend with. And that's why I told you to stick true to the human experience. Because we can go, 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 but we might miss our mark if we're not paying attention to us, the voters. So we have to start small, and we have to create things that are nearly perfect for our territories. And then because of that, we're trusted to build bigger. So it's not that VotRite and me, we have the capacity to fix everything. If I had command, I really do have the ability to create protocols that will no longer provide a conflict in our election process. I have that amount of experience. However, we're contending with a different idea, with the free market. With the free market competing with the free market called communism. And I don't know if you've heard yet, but the democracy and communism, we're not sure if we're friends today. Maybe tomorrow we will be friends. But since we're not sure, it becomes competitive. So that's a scoop. We come in and we do it the right way. We build the trust and we move without so much pushback that it costs us. That's the way to resolve this. Time and effort, and believe in us. And we believe in them,
So what's the step forward on finding your current funders, sponsors for your program and stuff like that? Because it's a big thing, and I'm sure when you try to explain it to other people, they're gonna understand why you're doing it, right? And I'm sure
Yes,
there are honest people out there that are gonna, So
yes.
where can people find you? Where can people find you, and how can you connect with you and
So
stuff like that?
people can find our contact information at www.votrite.com. In addition to that, if they do have interest in participating in this mini IPO to be part of our community, to own part of VotRite, there's a list of regulations. So as soon as we're finally approved, we can sell. But for now, I can explain. And what they will do is they'll show interest. They can send an email to myself. On the website, it says Kapsis, Angelica Kapsis, Kapsis, or info@votrite.com. And we put them on a short list. And then we start building together. So we all have a say in what's going on. You know where your money's going. You're not throwing it away on the bets. You're not throwing it away hoping it gets somewhere for food. You know exactly what the process is going to be because you're going to be part of it. So that's the way that we start getting started, is we show interest with each other. Even if you're not sure you want to put in. I mean, some of these things, it could be somewhere around $10. It's not a huge buy-in, but you do have to meet a set of criteria depending on our federal regulations. It's called the SEC, so you can look it up, eventually. But you can show interest, and even if you can't provide just yet, you might be able to participate in another way, because as soon as we get funding, we're going to need a lot more manpower, and we want to be ready, and we want to be ready in as many territories that are willing to have us. So just showing interest provides us that incentive to reach out, to be ready for you, you know? And that's the best case. So if they are interested to visit this website or email directly, my first initial last name, AKAPSIS at VOTRITE.com or info@votrite.com. Either one will get to me. And that's where we get started.
Thank you. It was nice meeting up with you, Angelica. I think we're going to
Nice.
close
Thank
here.
you so much.
It was a great conversation having with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope we get a chance
Yeah,
to
I'm
meet
gonna
again. We'll see. Yeah.